We have two very special guests in the studio who I've had the pleasure of meeting just last week when we served on a panel together. We have Matt Fuller, who is the director of Autism in Love.
That's right.
And Carolina Groppa?
Correct.
Okay, got it right. Who is the producer of Autism in Love. And tell us about this film and what it is.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having us, Nancy. We're really excited to be here.
Very happy.
So we are making a feature-length documentary about how adults with autism fall in love and manage romantic relationships. So for the past 18 months, we've been researching, filming, and following people who are either single, looking for relationships, or are in relationships, and they're on all phases of the spectrum. So we have people who would be considered Asperger's, all the way to people who need assisted communication to communicate. And the idea behind the documentary is that we want to, A, expose a world that, I think is underexposed in the media and in the sort of zeitgeist in general. We don't hear a lot about adults with autism. But we also wanted to take a deeper look at what it really means to love somebody. And I think by looking at love through the lenses of somebody who has challenges with forming relationships and connecting with others, we'll ultimately understand what that means for us a little bit more deeply.
Okay, and Carolina, what brought you to this project as producer?
Yeah, well, I was actually working as an assistant to a doctor who's been in the field for about 20 years, Ira Halevale. He founded Pacific Child and Family Associates in Pasadena, Glendale.
Okay.
And had been working for him, and he wanted to do research for a book on this topic. And being his assistant, naturally, I started scouring a lot of the journals and the psychological journals and realized, shockingly so, that there was very little out there on this topic. And I have a filmmaker background, I'm an actor producer, so I said to Ira that this was probably bigger than a book, and how better to tell a story about love than with the visual component of a documentary. And so Ira basically hired us to do some research for him.
And had you and Matt worked together?
Well,
before?
Matt and I met at film school about 6-7 years ago, so I've known Matt for a few years. And
University of Central Florida.
Correct.
Okay.
Shout out to the Knights.
Okay.
So the minute that this kind of started becoming bigger than research and really just materializing as like a real project, I called Matt and I said, no, you have to do this with me. You're the guy. Like you are the one to shepherd this project. Right. I always knew it, that he was the right guy for it. So we did about 6 months of research, which we had standard interviews, and
Yeah, the research phase was really interesting for us because neither Carolina nor I really had much exposure to autism prior to the project. Right. And at first we were worried that that would be a little bit of a liability because we, sometimes you think when going into something you want to be really educated and know the topic before sort of telling a story about it. But we came to learn that that was actually a real asset for us because, like most of the people that will see our movie, we didn't know much, so we were...
You didn't have preconceived notions.
Exactly. Right. We didn't go in with any agenda or anything
Especially for a documentary.
Yeah.
You're really out to get a balanced view.
Right.
Now, we have a little clip reel here that...
This is our... I think you have our Sizzle Reel.
Your Sizzle Reel.
Our Sizzle Reel.
Let's sizzle with the Sizzle Reel.
Sizzle.
I've often wondered what it would be like to have, a relationship, a family. I have often wondered if I could have a relationship, I can imagine what it might be like. You probably would feel very drawn to that other person, like you couldn't live without them. Very energized. You would probably feel like riding a rocket.
We're going to take a closer look at a report out today showing a dramatic rise in autism.
1 in every 88 children. There will be more children diagnosed with autism this year than childhood diabetes, cancer, and HIV put together.
About love and autism, there was this one girl that I had a crush on. She really liked animals, and I tried to convey my feelings to her by acting like a cat, but I wasn't very good at that. Love is the most important thing to me. I've been wanting to find my soulmate for a very long time.
The point that I was most devastated by was the fact that he will never fall in love and get married. That's what you want for your child. You want your child to be happy.
People with autism have the same desires as neurotypical people. Not only do they want love, but they want children.
I want to be a mom. Of course, want to get married. It's a a work in progress. It's step by step.
I mean, I've never actually had like a real relationship. I don't even know what relationships are about.
I have to remember to make eye contact.
Using body language.
We have certain things we latch on to, won't let go of.
Understanding emotions, things related to the social aspect of being human. A lot of relationships don't necessarily work out because it seems like we don't care.
The kind of woman who I would be attracted to, who I would like to have, would be strong, capable, effective women who are definitely winners. I might like them. But I sure would question whether they would be attracted to me.
I'd still see myself as a married woman with a loving guy who has like good intentions.
The problem, I think, partly is that they're terrified because they can't handle dynamic problems.
Do I know whether my son's going to get married and have a relationship and get married? I have no idea. But what I don't want is for someone to tell me that he is not going to do that.
Not a lot of people can relate to my situation or hers.
With you, it's been different. It's just like you get me.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Well, I'm really hoping and somehow or somewhere in the future I would find my true love.
I might not need romantic love to be happy, but I would certainly like to at least find out what it's like. Maybe I would be able to do well, maybe not. But I would at least like to find out what it's all about.
I just, try to deny that I had feelings, and I pretended that that they didn't exist. Once I find someone, I'm totally open to that. I just need to find someone first.
Well, that moved me, and I'm sure moved anybody that was watching it. Now, you were pointing out this is not the trailer for the film.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, so when we were getting ready to put together the project last summer, we would go to people who we wanted to be involved in the project, and they would ask us what our vision was for the project. What did we want to do? Was this just going to be something where we set a camera down and let people talk, or were we going to really get in there and tell a story? And if so, how were we going to do it? How would it feel? How would it look? And so what you just saw was a sizzle reel. It was to convey the mood and the feeling for the movie we envisioned. So while the people who are in there are subjects for the documentary, what you've seen in there is not necessarily the meat and potatoes of their stories as it will unfold in the big movie.
Okay. Now, where is the project now, and when will it be finished, and all of that?
Sure.
So yeah, we're still in production. We're about 4 or 5 months into production. We anticipate shooting until the fall.
Okay.
So we got a long ways to go, and we anticipate that if everything goes well, we can release the film sometime next year.
2014.
2014. So quick turnaround for a documentary. Usually docs take a little bit longer to complete. And we're also actually doing a Kickstarter right now.
I want to bring that up.
Yeah, we can bring that up whenever.
If you're like me and you have a child with autism and you work in the autism world, we all want our children to be happy. And we know that relationships are such an important part of happiness. And I think most of us autism parents dream that our children will be able to have a relationship. We that's a goal for us. I mean, maybe some people are hoping their child, doesn't get involved with others. I'm like, I can't wait till my son comes home and says, "Mom, I kissed a girl." Yay, high five. So, I'm rooting for it, man.
Yeah.
So how can people support this project? There's Kickstarter.
Yeah, that's the first and foremost way of supporting, because we've come a really long way in terms of getting the film up on its legs and the financial backing to make the movie on our own. But we have a long way to go. So Kickstarter, right now we're in the middle of the campaign. We've got about 9 days left.
8 days left. If we don't reach our goal with Kickstarter, it's an all or nothing ordeal. So if we don't reach our goal by May 4th, I believe, we walk away with nothing, and we risk being able to complete this film as quickly as we'd like. We are still committed 100% to finishing this film and to continue.
But if our viewers today would like to go to Kickstarter, and what do they look up on Kickstarter?
Well, actually, the easiest way to get to our Kickstarter is to first go to our Facebook page. So facebook.com/autisminlove, and from there it's riddled with links to our Kickstarter campaign.
Facebook.com
Autism in Love.
/Autism in Love.
/Autism in Love. You heard it. And let's help these creative young people get this project off the ground, because it is a much needed story. I was so moved. I want to talk about a couple of the people that you have thus far filmed. Howard Mcbroom was the older gentleman who apparently was not diagnosed until he was much older. And tell us your impressions of Howard.
I think to know Howard is to love him. I mean, he's just one of the most beautiful, gentle, positive souls I know. He, as you mentioned, he's the gentleman who opens up the Sizzle Reel, and he's clearly outwardly affected by his handicaps, but you'd never know that by the way he operates. He just, he continues, he's got this great presentation that he gives at his church a lot, where he talks about winner's way and loser's circle. And those are choices in life. You can be on winner's way if you choose to be. You have to just keep persevering, know what you want, and be a positive person, or you can go down loser's way, and that's a path into a negative life. But Howard's great. I mean, he's very articulate in that he understands the challenges he has. He's in his mid-50s now and has not had a romantic relationship in his life. He would like one. He would really like one. But he knows that if he doesn't have one, he's still going to be happy and live a successful life.
Well, you know what? Maybe through this film, he will find one.
Well, we sure hope. I mean, in July, he's actually going to his 40th high school reunion back in Indiana, and he's got high hopes.
Well, I want you, we're going to talk about how we can get Howard on this show, because I have heard him speak, and he's very inspirational.
He really is.
I also understand that he spent some time being homeless and, has had some just enormous challenges in life, and he really is an inspiration. What about some of the other people that you've interviewed? The young man with the rose, how sweet.
Oh, that's Armand Kodai. Armand is
handsome.
Very handsome.
Good-looking guy, very charming. Armand is great. He came to us very early on in the process when we were doing the research for Dr. Hellville. We cast the net far and wide looking for people who'd be willing to sit down and talk to us on camera, just to answer a couple of questions. And Armand sent us this email, and the opening line was, "The most important thing to me is love." Those were his words, and I was so struck by that because, he's so candid and so direct about things, and then you kind of meet him, and he's just somebody who's very clearly about finding that really special relationship. A hopeless romantic. He's actually got a book that's coming out. He's written a memoir, and I won't spoil anything in there, but it really gives you a really candid insight into the life of somebody growing up with autism and then emerging into an adult world and sculpting a life for themselves. He's a very inspiring, empowering young man.
Great. Another person we have to get on this show.
Absolutely.
Where does he live?
Armand lives in Rancho Cucamonga. I understand he's going to be moving soon, but still in Southern California.
Okay, we'll have to get him here. What about the film and the people you have met to include in it? What has surprised you most in terms of some of the things that these individuals on the spectrum, or maybe their parents, have said?
I think their resilience. I think
that's good.
The misconceptions that most people have, that people with autism don't want connection, don't yearn for that. And at the end of the day, we're all human and they have the same desires we do, and they may communicate it differently, but it doesn't mitigate the value or importance to them. And it's even more important because a lot of people with autism, as you know, feel things so much more than we do. They take the world in through all their senses. So they yearn for that at a level I think that's bigger than we can really understand.
Yes.
I just feel like I'm constantly learning from all of everyone who's participating in the movie, in that they have, in many ways, a much deeper understanding of love and connection than the kind of neurotypical world, or at least the way we're taught to think about love in this sort of fairy tale way.
Well, you know what this brings to mind is that you're really dispelling myths in this film about what it is to have autism. I mean, until recently, the belief was that people with autism didn't feel.
Right.
Absolutely.
They didn't have any feelings.
Absolutely.
And as recently as even the 1960s and 70s, anyone with autism was automatically institutionalized, and it was blamed on the mother for the lack of bonding with the child. So people just assumed that anyone with autism had an inability to form relationships, an inability to feel, and you're really dispelling that myth. So I want to thank you for that.
Oh, it's our pleasure. It really is a gift to be able to do that, because you're right. I mean, before getting into this project, like I said, Carolina and I didn't have much exposure to the autism world.
Right.
And I think, like most people, we knew about Rain Man and the kind of vaccine conversations, and that was it. So you're right. We did have this idea that love, romantic love, and people with autism were two separate ideas.
Yeah,
and
never going to meet.
Right, but that couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
So.
And we were on a panel last week.
Yes, that's right.
For a play called On the Spectrum.
Right.
Which basically, and I think it's closing tonight.
This weekend, I think.
This weekend.
I think this
okay.
weekend,
Fountain Theater, go see it, right?
Really
Run,
it's
don't
so
walk.
good.
Run,
It's so
don't
good.
walk. And I talked about that at the top of the show because I talked about the moment in the play where Iris, the young woman who is profoundly affected, nonverbal, has the confrontation with the mother who has spent her whole life trying to get her son to pass for typical and get him off to law school. And now he's fallen in love with a severely autistic woman. And she says, the girl says, you don't love him like I do. I love all of him. If you could give him a pill, you would, to take away his autism. And the mom says, don't talk to me about love.
Right.
I've spent my whole life sacrificing for this child. So there's some very interesting ethical questions that I think do come up in this whole question of, do we make our individuals and children on the autism spectrum more like us, or do we become more accepting of them?
Right. Yeah, and it's a great question, and it is a very ethical conversation. A lot of people, there's very polarizing opinions on it. I think what's beautiful about love is that when you're in love, labels fall away, and it doesn't, it doesn't really matter if you're high functioning, low functioning, if you're on the spectrum or not. If you're connecting with someone in that way, then labels are shed, and it's just about that connection. So
basically, I think your film is going to show us that love conquers all, right?
I think so, and I think we can all learn so much from, like Matt said, what we've already seen, and our hope is that people will walk into this film that is seemingly about people with autism and forget that you're watching people with autism, and you're watching the human experience of connection and really analyzing what love means and what it means to connect with someone, and to just kind of revisit our own ideas of that. That's our hope for the film anyway, that it informs and educates, obviously, but also that it transcends all of that and that it connects with people, humans, everyone.
That we're all humans.
We're all human.
And that we all deserve the same basic rights to happiness and to safety and to health and to love each other, right?
And to love.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how else can we get the word out? What else can the public do? Go to the Facebook page.
Definitely go to the Facebook page. Please like us on Facebook and tell people about us. Let everyone know that we're out there. We are a good 6 to 8 months away from having the movie out on people's screens. So the more people that want it when it comes out, the more we'll be able to share this message and share these stories with everyone.
And also, Kickstarter aside, and that is obviously our priority for the next week, it's really important to us to connect with the community, with people, to engage.
Are you looking for more stories?
We're not looking for more stories right now.
You've got them.
We've got the stories for the film, but I got to tell you that the real fuel in our engine are these emails and tweets and Facebook messages that we get from people in Australia or Kansas who just have been thirsting for stories like this and remind us how important this project is. So on those 4 14-hour days where we're, sleepless nights where we're really burning the midnight oil. It's that kind of stuff really keeps us going as filmmakers, and so that kind of support really does mean a lot to us.
Yeah, so the primary way is to just connect with us. Through our Facebook, you can find our Twitter, our email addresses, many ways to contact us and stay in touch with us. And then the next step to that would be our Kickstarter. If you can't donate, that's fine, but share it with everyone you know. You never know whose heart it may touch. One thing that I've realized, which has been eye-opening, is I'll be in any place you can think of, talking to any group of people, and I'll tell them about my project, and there is always at least one person that I'm around that says, oh, I have a cousin on the spectrum. Mm-hmm. Oh, my aunt is an OT. Like, there is always somebody connected to autism, which is great, and also, a little saddening in many ways.
Yes.
But I never knew prior to this project just how massive the autism community was, from people on the spectrum to the outer rings of that.
Right,
and
the people that support them, the parents, the advocates, the therapists, and the whole autism community, which is huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
So supporting and sharing, we can only do so much as two people, but with the help of everyone who's watching and connects with what our story and what we're trying to say, we can really reach those outer rings and maybe make our goal. And even if we don't, it's about connecting, and it's about getting this story and sharing it with the world, because we're pouring everything we've got into it.
I can tell you
we love it. We love this film so much.
It deserves to get out there. It will get out there, and I hope in a couple of months down the line here, we're going to have you back on. The documentary is going to be finished, and we're going to be talking about premieres and screenings and getting it out there in the world, and helping dispel more myths about what it means to be on the spectrum and live with somebody on the spectrum, and show that individuals with ASD are human beings just like all of us, and deserve love and respect.